Hi,
Very good evening, sir. Welcome to
good
the line.
evening. Pleasure.
Uh, so, Hi, sir. I'm sorry.
I'm saying it's my pleasure. Can you hear me?
Our pleasure. It's honestly our pleasure. So we are so glad to have you out here.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Really obliged.
Great.
So, can we start with the session, sir?
Absolutely.
Thank you so much. So, a very good evening to our audience present with us today to learn and grow with another live session of Placement Cell Shivaji College. I, Diksha, core member of Placement Cell Shivaji College, welcome you all to episode 10 of Success Stories. Today we have with us an entrepreneur, a restaurateur, a TEDx and academic speaker, and a long distance runner. And no, we do not have different speakers. I would like to invite our speaker for today, Mr. Prashant Ishar, to address the audience of this live.
Thank you.
The audience is yours, sir. Please kindly address the audience.
Great. Well, thank you guys for logging in, and it always gives me a lot of pleasure and excitement in talking to the youth, to the students who are on the threshold uh, of reality, so to speak. And having been there twice over, first during my hotel school, and secondly during my MBA, I I think that it is critical for you guys to uh, to think, because a lot of times we just don't do the simplest of things, which is think. And I realized that not just thinking, meta thinking, which is like thinking about thinking, is so critical at that stage. But no matter how much I'll tell you, I must also tell you that irrespective of whatever I speak, you will not do it, because you have your own lens to look at the world, which I did as well. And the lens always changes and evolves with experience. Nothing can take the place of experience. Uh, when I was in your place at your age, a lot of people spoke to me about wisdom and experience, and I just brushed it off. It really doesn't matter. We are living in a different age, etc., etc., etc. But yeah, it does come to you at a particular time. So no matter what I say, I will not be able to prepare you for it. However, I must say that uh, if you have the ability of reading between the lines, then and you pay attention to what I will tell you, then you can definitely benefit from it. You can relate it to your own experiences, and you can possibly uh, gain some value. But that is totally up to you, you know. So let's start with college. Let's start with the hotel school. And hotel management was a lot of fun, because uh, we did not study at all. And I really say at all. Uh, it was the day before the exam that you studied. But still, I gained a lot from hotel school. And I'll tell you why. Because now, after the MBA, I can create a model. And the model is that uh, studying leads to knowledge, and knowledge may or may not lead to learning, and learning may or may not lead to application, and application may or may not lead to success, and success can definitely lead to failure, you know, if you don't pay attention. So in India, in our education system, we study a lot. We are made to study uh, and gain knowledge. But does that knowledge translate into learning? And that is what I said. If you have the art of reading between the lines, or if you can listen rather than just hear. So uh, I think in my second stint at education, that is the MBA, I uh, developed the art of learning. And and one thing about learning is that it is so uh, bespoke to an individual that my learning from the same session will be so much different than yours. And each one of yours learning will be so much different than the other person. So what you take with you is uh, is what you've learned, is how you have put your lens onto someone else's knowledge and extracted what you want and how much you want. You need not take all of it because a lot of it is purely simply noise, and you just have to take what relates to you. That I think uh, really helped me uh, during the MBA. And during the MBA, which was about 13 years after my hotel school, I learned, I realized that some of the learnings of my hotel school were still pending in my brain, which I learned at that time, you know. And I also realized a lot of things. So when you learn, you realize. And what do you realize? You realize that it is your independent journey, and you also realize that it need not be bound by a manual of how to go about life. And it also makes you comfortable with the repetition of challenges in life. And because I became comfortable with the repetition of challenges in my life, I decided to challenge myself more. I decided to leave my cushy, comfortable, um successful career and jump into entrepreneurship. And I mean, at times I think it was a mistake. At times I think it was the best decision I've ever taken, because there are high highs and very low lows. Uh, but at the end of the day, uh, I mean, it's a cliche statement. I'm my own boss, but more than that, uh, I create jobs for people, and I think that is what really gives me immense satisfaction. So when someone asks me how many people work for you, or how many people are you, I tell them that it's not about how many people work for me, it's about how many people I'm responsible for, because I'm responsible for not just them, but their families. And if there are 50 people working for me, then I'm responsible for 51 families. The 51st family is mine. So uh, these are the things that I've taken, in my learning. I also feel uh, that once you are comfortable with your learning, you can reach a higher level. So, like in Japanese, there is shuhari, which is shu is almost just like knowledge, and ha is when you learned a little and you can uh, tweak that learning and that knowledge to relate to a particular situation. So that is how. So when you see a lot of people and you see yourself and you say, oh my God, I should have answered it differently in hindsight, and hindsight, oh my God, I wish I had it at that time, etc. That is, you will have it at that time if you reach the stage of ha. And if you reach the stage of re, means you will be possibly considered to be a genius, or eccentric, or a total idiot by the others. But in your own realm, you are really excited, and you're happy with where you are. So yeah, so I kind of think about myself uh, as different, but I think of myself as normal as everyone else is, or as different as everyone else is. But I'm kind of now um content in my own being. However, I am very hungry and never satisfied with what I've accomplished. So if that even makes sense, but it is being content, but also not being satisfied. Uh, I do. I think the MBA did that to me. MBA changes people. I was told that in the beginning, and a good MBA school changes you definitely. Uh, and you kind of lose all your friends, and because you think. they don't know what they're talking about, and ditto, they think that you don't know what you're talking about because you're on different planes. But yeah, it gives you that confidence to be able to, stand up tall and put forth your opinion. Because I remember previous to my MBA, there were a lot of times when I knew the answer, but I would not say it because I was not confident whether it was correct. So, and it happens to a lot of people that when someone else answers it, you say, "Oh my God, I knew that, I knew that, and I could have really answered it, and possibly answered it better than them." But the moment is gone, the ship has sailed. However, once you get into learning, and learning need not be an MBA, learning can be at any stage of your life. So once you uh, grasp that art of learning, uh, you're a different person altogether. So now, what is that art of learning and how do you grasp that? I'll make it extremely simple for you. Be confident of what you understood from a particular piece of work, literature, uh, an article. Be confident of what you've understood. That's okay. That's your learning. You know, it might be totally strange and foreign to everyone else's. And if it is foreign to everyone else's, be proud that you've seen something in it that they could not. Don't think that they are right and you're not. But you saw something in it that they could not. All you have to know for learning is the language. If it's an article in Hindi, you should know Hindi. An article in English, you should know English. You don't need to know calculus and integral equations and algorithms. You just need to know the language. The rest of it, your brain will do. The best of algorithms, the best of mathematical puzzles are solved by brains of people who know that language, right? So it's just that. And you don't need to be a mathematician to solve that. The first person who ever did 2 plus 2, 4 was not a mathematician, right? So I'm just saying it's so simple that you believe that what you grasped from a particular session or an article or a piece of prose is is true to you, to your thinking. So in the in higher education, people tell you about lenses, people tell you about points of view, perception, etc., etc., etc. There's a lot of jargon in there, and jargon is good because you tend to show off with it, but it's all relating to your point of view. How could it be different? Obviously, it will be because it's you. I mean, it's your view of the world. Now, what appears pink to you appears pink to the other person because you're both told, but are you seeing the same color? Or the color that is coming to you as pink in your eyes, is he seeing it like that? You don't know. It is just that you're told that color is pink. So for him, pink might be lighter than what pink appears to you. Maybe his is closer to orange, yours is closer to red. I'm just not trying to confuse you. I'm just trying to tell you that it's all okay. And there are phrases, idioms, proverbs, which are like, which make you understand these kind of things. I think uh, in the end, everything falls into place. I think that's a pretty decent one because whenever you are uh, really grasping and uh, in the middle of a challenge, then these kind of phrases help, And and what do they help you with? They help you with gaining confidence. At the end of the day, that is what it is, self-belief. So learning is nothing more than self-belief. You know, I've kind of gathered that. And in any education, you learn more from your colleagues, you learn more from your family when you bounce things off them, you learn more from everywhere other than from the course material. See, I'm not trying to put you off your course, but I'm just trying to tell you that the moment you get this learning thing clear in your head, uh, everything becomes so transparent or translucent that you tend to see through and pick out what is relevant to you or your situation at that particular point of time. The same thing at two different times will give you different learnings, right? It's experience, okay? And that's what it'll give you. So it's okay to react differently to the same thing at different times. Uh, you know, uh, a lot of times people will tell you, but you didn't tell, you told me something, you told me otherwise last time. Yes, but that was last time. So I've grown, I've evolved as a person, and I know that uh, I'm more holistic now. I look at myself 5 years ago or 10 years ago, and I think of myself at that time. I thought I was as wise and uh, you know enlightened as I could ever be. But I look at myself in hindsight, and I think, how naive was I? But it was important for me at that time to feel enlightened and um, full of knowledge and learning at that time for me to survive that period. So it's just that you kind of will do that in life to come, and you guys can do it earlier. I think, like they say, there's nothing like a silly question or a stupid question. I think there's nothing like a stupid idea or a silly idea. You know, uh, at the end of the day, the world is full of talented derelicts. So there are so many people with so much of talent who are so derelict that they don't even put forth their capabilities and talent because they might be nervous, they might be shy, they might be apprehensive. I think I was surprised when I did my MBTI indicator analysis, which tells you whether you're an introvert or an extrovert. And I came out as an extrovert because till that time, I always felt I'm an introvert, and I still feel so. So I think it came out as an extrovert, and I was like, oh, I am an extrovert. And see how things how mind plays with you. I said, oh, I'm an extrovert. Great. I should then not be shy of public speaking. And the next thing I was doing was trying to put my name in every public speaking forum. And this was what I should have done 10, 15 years ago. I was doing it now, but I was happy with doing it later as well. So whenever it comes to you, it is good enough. And I just uh, I realized that I had certain qualities which made me who I am. So also, learning gives you a higher sense of a higher analytical sense, and you start analyzing everything. And others might find your analysis absolutely silly and very, very at times rudimentary, but it is your analysis, right? If a situation is rudimentary, well, it is rudimentary. It need not be complicated for nothing. So I realized, analyzing myself, that at times I'm possibly not a very good person. I'm arrogant and I'm stubborn and I might be very manipulative and I might be diplomatic. And then I also realized that these are actually qualities for any entrepreneur, because if I'm not arrogant, everyone will come and tell me, oh, no, no, what you're doing is actually not correct. Why don't you do it this way? And I will change my focus. So I have to be arrogant in what I believe, right? Self belief is arrogance, right? So arrogance is really a quality. Manipulation, I think manipulation is a very good quality for anyone to have, because write this down: Janta needs to be led and not explained. Never in a 300 audience try to do critical questioning, because it will not, or critical thinking, it will not help. You know, um, so the Janta is the common Joe Bloke who still has uh, not learned the art of learning. He or she is just studying, cramming it all in, and taking it in. What Shakespeare said in black and white is what is imprinted on their brain in black and white. They cannot dig deeper into that statement. So that is the Janta, right? So Janta needs to be led, and if you won't lead it, someone else will lead it. So you have to be manipulative. You have to show them, you know what, you give me blood and I'll give you freedom, right? And then you lead. Now imagine if everyone is wants blood and wants to give freedom, then there is no army, right? The army has one general or one commander. It does not have 20,000 commanders, so it's going in 20,000 different ways, and you really don't know what's happening. You can see it in reality shows. On television, that everyone has a mind of its own, and then they command you, like in this Big Brother or the Big Boss series, they tell you, okay, discuss this thing and come up with a suggestion. It will never happen very clearly because everyone wants to be a leader, so you have to be manipulative. um, Diplomacy is a virtue. Patience is not a virtue, because we are living in a very dynamic age. We are living where uh, Facebook can get 1 million followers in a matter of a year, and not in the age of television, which got its first 1 million followers in 15, 20 years. So we obviously living in a faster age, which is dynamic, which changes from time to time, and you have to be adaptive. And if you're not adaptive, then you'll get left behind. So don't be that patient. Be calm, composed, but not patient. So patience is not a virtue. Diplomacy is. Manipulation is a quality. Arrogance is self-belief. So these all came to me because I believed in what I gathered from that uh, piece of knowledge, you know, and converted into learning for me. The same article read by another person might not uh, get him these qualities or traits, or and he might find these offensive, but I think they work for me. You don't have to be nasty. Please don't get me wrong. Being arrogant is sticking to your beliefs. It's not being nasty to someone else. Being stubborn, I think, is again a quality. Now think about uh, Thomas Edison. Uh, when he would have told people about his idea before actually developing the light bulb, he would have said, "I'm going to do something wherein the press of a button there'll be day, and the press of a button there'll be night," and people would have laughed at him, thinking of him as an eccentric lunatic. Uh, but in the end, but he stuck to it, right? He stuck to it. When you invent something, you realize that you have created something which is newfound. Imagine the buzz or the thrill that Edison would have got, or Graham Bell would have got, or any inventor would have got, because they created something out of nothing. That thing did not exist for millions and millions of years before them. So that is the thrill, right? That can only happen when you believe in your own self. And if you don't believe in your own self, then fine. A is A for apple, B for boy. You know. So that's what you believe in. So you could be as rudimentary as that. And that's what I call rudimentary. Oh yeah, if someone asks me what is H for, and I can immediately say horse. So I think that is rudimentary. If someone asks me what does H stand for, and I'll say, let me think. Doesn't need to be a noun. Could be so many things. You know, could be a hotel room for guests, could be a home for someone as opposed to a house, could be so many things, right? So you have the right, you are in the right place right now to challenge your own thinking, to always see status quo challenged, and experience has no meaning because you're in a dynamic world. And then contradiction is always acceptable. I said experience cannot be replaced by anything earlier. Now I'm saying experience has no meaning. But yeah, so conventional wisdom, experience, you can actually write a book of anonyms. You know, whatever you learned out of the window, whatever you know out of the window, whatever you're learning is written on a blank page of your new book. So I can go on and on and on about it, but I think, that this is how I started thinking. And I also realized this from other people. And it did not kind of come to me when I was meditating under a tree. It came to me when I saw other people doing it, you know. And once it came to me, I just developed it for myself. It's almost like handwriting. You develop it. It's like typing on your phone. every one of us nowadays is like very fast with it, and uh, and there are tools and Swift keys available where you just kind of swipe your finger and the word comes up, etc. But it develops, right? Everything evolves, everything develops. So you have to work hard at developing these, uh, not traits that has come to you, developing the skill to be able to relate it and see through. So when you can see through things, and people say, why does he think differently to everyone else in the room? And then, if that person who thinks differently to everyone else in the room is you, there we are. That is like the moment you should have been waiting for. Then your presence in the room means something, you know. And if your presence in the room means something, then you are obviously you'll find it easier to leave the room, and it'll mean something if on a black tie dinner you're the only one in a red suit, you know. So these are kind of things, but you have the belief in yourself. So we see it in movies, we see it in films, docudramas, etc., etc., and we say, oh my, look at that person, I'll do what he does. But you don't need to do what he or she does. You need to do what you do, which will be as unusual, foreign to the rest of the people in the room than what you saw in that scene, you know. So you just have to do what you want to do, and imagine life will be so much more happier. And I'm not always happy. I'm at times pretty pissed off, but frustration comes into everyone, you know. But that is when you have to tell yourself, I'll tide over. This thing is also past. All is well, you know, that kind of the Three Idiots thing. So, I mean, these are all. So when I see that movie and I say all is well, then that is basically getting back to your lens, right? That in the end everything falls into place. This is what Oscar Wilde said. He also said, all of us are living in the gutter, but some of us are looking at the stars. You know, so these are kind of things. So I saw that written on a bench in Covent Garden in London, and it stayed with me. You know, because and it means different things at different times. If I have to pep a friend up, I send this to him, and he like or she like, oh my God, yeah, we should do that. You know, I think a lot of people saw a video about a restaurant where deaf and mute people were serving. It was a restaurant in Canada. It was called Signs. It got about approximately, I think, over 1 million views. Uh, but only we did it, you know. So it is not always about the idea, who gets the idea first, because sometimes you'll be wondering, oh my God, he got the idea to make Facebook, he got the idea for Zomato, he got the idea for Amazon, etc. So it's done, finished, dusted. No, it's okay. Everyone can get any number of ideas, but it's only those who executed it, right? So if you execute it, you're fine. After Zomato, Swiggy executed it. Today they are as big, if not bigger than Zomato, or maybe not bigger, but more or less the same. Uh, then Oyo Rooms did it. After Oyo Rooms, Fab Hotels has done it. So many others have done it. So I am from the hotel industry, so let me tell you that Oberoi Hotels and Taj Hotels uh, together, if we put their valuations together, it totals to somewhere around 24,000 crores. That is their valuation. Oberoi Hotels at 10,000, Taj Hotels at 14,000, 24,000 crores is their valuation. About a year or two ago. And then comes up this 23, 22-year-old boy who's now 24, 25, Ritesh Agarwal, whatever his name is, the Oyo Rooms guy, and his company is valued at $29,000, which is more than the Taj and the Oberoi hotels put together, without owning a single room. So, idea, right? So now people say, "Oh my God, I should have done it. Now it's gone forever." It's not gone forever. You can do yo-yo rooms, yeah. Doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. You don't have to do yo-yo rooms, but you can leapfrog, take his idea. It's okay. You don't have to copy it, but better it and create something else, which could possibly challenge him later. So, but execute. Don't just think, oh, that moment is gone. I wish I had that idea at that time. It's not about that really. It's about when you get an idea, and how do you know this idea is going to work? Well, an entrepreneur told me who knew nothing about insurance, and then he built a company in the UK which insures satellites, and it's a very very big company already, a $1 billion company. And I asked him, how did you get the idea of insuring satellites when you don't know anything about insurance? And he said, I just sat down with three friends and I told them the idea and I wondered if they'll join me, and all of them said yes. So I said, okay, it's a good idea. So people have different. That's his algorithm, Run it through three people. So people have different algorithms. People have different thinking. People have different rituals. So all rituals. Thank God we are living in an age where everything is acceptable. And then if you believe that what, uh, oh my God, I don't want to copy someone else's idea. I want to do what is my own. Let me clear your thoughts on that, because nothing in the world is original anymore. Because if you've got the best, most unique idea, put it on Google and you'll have 10 other people who've already thought about it. So it's okay. Doesn't matter. Thinking about anything is not copywriting it for everyone else in the world. No. Thinking about something is thinking. Executing it and then getting a patent or a copyright is what is going to stop other people from copying it. But thoughts, merely thoughts, oh, I thought of it first. Yeah, doesn't matter. So this is how I think, and I think you guys are on the cusp of doing this. So please, as far as your exams are concerned, stay true to your teachers. But as far as your life is concerned, stay true to yourself. You know? So I'll take a pause there, guys. Uh, you can ask me questions.
So like normally when we have live sessions, it's more career oriented, but like asking you to just go there, it I think it has enlightened our entire audience to like another level. I think the kind of information that me sitting here has gathered and an entire audience has and will in future, since this live session will be saved, will be tremendous.
Thank you.
So I'm really
Thank you.
thankful by to you. This was just great. So
Uh,
so we have a lot of questions
Go on.
for you. Okay. So like you worked at a top tier hotel like Taj and then decided to move to London to start anew. Now, what exactly motivated you to take that opportunity?
Um, Number one, when someone says London, everyone wants to go there. So that was one. That was the first time I traveled outside the country. So I was excited. Secondly, I was into restaurants within the Taj as well, and I felt London is the capital of the world as far as food and beverage is concerned. It is the most competitive market. So let's go and try that market and see how we fit in. Maybe we'll be a total failure, or maybe I'll come out trumps. So, and although I realized it later during the MBA, as I said, but I always had this thing about going against the grain, so to speak. I would always try to think differently. And although in the Taj, at that point when I left, I was already considered a kind of a prodigy amongst my peers, but it kind of makes you more proud and arrogant. So obviously you want to do more things with life, and YOLO, you only live once. So there are some of my friends who are still with the Taj. Oh my God. Uh, I mean, it's like 25 years and you're still with the hotel. You tend to become part of the furniture, and I didn't want to do that. Taj gave me his learning, and I think 5 years was enough.
So okay. So I'll just ask the next question. We are like kind of beyond time. So I'll just be quick with it. So you've also worked with the Michelin star restaurant that is Amaya. Like, how was
Yeah.
your experience and the responsibilities that you had in Amaya different from that of Taj, and unique and just
Well, in a hotel, you are protected. You're within. um, a kind of a structure wherein even if you create a mistake or a blunder, it can be handled at different levels, at the lobby level by the lobby manager, at the room level by the room manager, etc., etc. You can make the guest happy. In an independent restaurant, the guest steps out of your door, then he's gone out in the wide world shouting from the rooftops that, you know what, this is a bad restaurant or we had a bad experience. And especially when the restaurant is a Michelin star restaurant, then people have those many more idiosyncrasies to be addressed by the establishment. And uh, my learning at Maya, retaining the Michelin star for over 6 years, was that uh, be able to estimate or be able to guess what is going to happen next. So I used to tell my manager that you have to work in real time and I have to work at least 2 hours ahead of you every night and at least 2 weeks ahead of you for running the business. So I cannot be in the present at any given point of time. Does that make sense?
That makes a lot of sense. That makes a lot of sense. That makes a lot of sense. Like, being in that
Different kind of
position,
sense. Yeah.
yeah, like being in a position of that authority, that's a
But it's
responsibility that you.
exciting. It's exciting because we used to have guests like Gwyneth Paltrow was a friend, Jake Gyllenhaal, uh, uh, Hugh Grant, Amitabh Bachchan, the Mittals, uh, General Musharraf, and you name it, and they would be coming there often, and you had their numbers on your phone, and they would call you, the Indian cricket team, and they've done really badly today, I believe, but all of this, and they would be on first name basis, so it used to uh, be quite thrilling as well, you know.
That sounds like a very exciting experience. Like you've had the fun life.
It sounds
So,
like
so
that, yeah.
uh, I'm also curious about your MBA. Like, why did you pursue an MBA even after having such a commendable work experience? And did you think it was a necessary step, like in taking the MBA?
So after my hotel management, I decided I'd never study again. I will not even give a driving license test. I would not study at all. I've said this so many times already. But I realized when I was working in London that our directors were all Cambridge and Stanford MBAs, three of them, and they, despite not being from our industry, were could always come with a different, uh, you know. Kind of thinking about the same thing, and it would make sense. So I would wonder how do they do it, and once I spoke to them, and they said, you know what, higher education definitely changes people, and so I applied to Henley Business School and Stern Business School New York, and Imperial London, and all those places, and I got through three of them, Stern School New York as well, and I took Henley because. One, I also applied for a scholarship, got a Times scholarship there. And also, I realized that Henley was about entrepreneurship, general management, and leadership. And those are the things that I kind of gathered. And also, they took a very small batch for their executive MBA, which was less than 30 people, is what they would take. And people would be from all across the world. A minimum of 13 years of senior management experience was required. So I just felt that that was the one that I wanted to get into. So I chose the MBA, and I realized in the first month itself, in the first week, in fact, we had to spend a week in the college every month. And I realized in the first week itself that, oh my God, this is going to change me and change me big time, you know. So,
So I think Henley did you great.
oh yeah, 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 absolutely.
So okay, so like I also want to talk about Ashara. So what encouraged you to pursue something so unique as Ashara? How did you get the idea, as you said before? You
So
got
we
the
saw
idea
this
and then you
video
executed.
in Facebook, yeah, and we opened our first two restaurants, Mirchi and Mime and Madeira and Mime in Powai. We were four partners, and then two of us exited and moved on and opened Ishara because we got funding from Louis Vuitton, which is a big brand, and their funding arm El Carreton, and through Impresario Restaurant, which is a very big restaurant group in the country. So we were like really starry-eyed, and we said, okay, we'll create Ishara. Ishara Basically, I got the name while I was on my run one morning, because name is really important for a business, and it's very controversial because everyone wants a different name, and there are a lot of fights and arguments. And I just was running, and I thought that Ishara would be absolutely apt, because Ishara means signs. Also, Ishara um, is a word used in Persia, used in Middle East, used in India, used in you know Mongolia and those places as well. So I could possibly, I had the poetic license of going beyond Indian food to the food of the subcontinent. So it gave me that license. And also, it's a very common word. So everyone, there is no SEO money spent to money to be spent. So anyone puts Ishara, you just your restaurant will also creep up. So that's why I thought about it. And I believe that these, when we started meeting these boys and girls uh, who are speech and hearing impaired, we realized that uh, they're far, they enjoy life a lot more than the rest of us, because they have a simpler life. They're living in the current age, but their life is maybe from a different world altogether. Uh, they cannot hear when their friend is bitching about them. They cannot hear when someone else is talking rude to them. It's so good, isn't it? I think it's phenomenal. That's why they smile a lot more than us. They're far warmer, and they're more friendlier, and they're more focused. So they have all the qualities that you require in hospitality. And when we met them and we realized this, we knew we were on to a winner, and nothing could take that away from us. You know, so that's how it happened.
Agreed, sir. That was a winning goal, a winning idea, honestly. So also, like, could you tell us about your experience with startup and ventures, like with Mime and Mirchi and then Stratix Hospitality? So, what were the difficulties you faced with these ventures?
So difficulties always are there. There are challenges, etc. Um, there are too many moving parts to it, and you have to get all of them right, and tune them at all given point of time, convincing the parents that, what, even if your child has this limitation of not being able to speak or hear, we will take care of your child. So people are possessive about the children, and when the children has a limitation or a disability, as people call it, parents are even more possessive. So the moment you go and tell them, what, we will take them, we've come from London, we will now make them independent, etc., etc. The first thing they tell you is, talk to the hand. You're not required here. We'll take care of our children. So there was that, challenge, and there were a lot more challenges. But which business doesn't have challenges? They're all there. You have to be very positive as an entrepreneur, because there will be very low lows, you know, uh, very low. And then COVID happens, because God laughs at the man who makes plans. Rather, I should be more gender centric. God laughs at the person who makes plans. So you plan and you say, okay, fine, we're going to open Ishara in Dubai, etc., etc. You go, get everything done in February, you come back, and in March you get COVID. And there. So these kind of things happen, but it changes direction as long as you can adapt. You have to be adaptable. You have to be dynamic. You have to change moment to moment. And if you enjoy that thrill, then yeah, you're in for a good ride. And if you do not enjoy that thrill, then oh my God, I've seen a lot of people fall.
They are still in for a good ride, not a
Yeah.
good one per se.
Yeah.
So that's like, I'll just end my questions out there.
Great.
And
Yeah.
like right now, I do feel our audience is taking a lot from this session, an
That's
amazing
it.
lot.
That's
And
it.
we couldn't be thankful and grateful to you. So, like,
My
this
pleasure.
was
Thank you. All the
this was
best to
our
you all.
pleasure. I couldn't emphasize this more. Honestly, I should say this like 100 times, that we are greatly obliged
Thank you.
and greatly obliged to have you here and to have this session with you and learn so much from you. This much
Thank you.
insight, yeah.
Thank you.
And like, my audience agrees.
Thanks very much.
Yeah, so thank you so much, sir.
Thank you.
And
Bye.
bye,
You were
thank you so
saying,
much, sir.
sorry.
And all the best for like everything else
Thank
that
you.
you've
All the
been
best to all of you.
doing.
And yeah, be good. Start learning. All right.
Yeah, sir. So I'm just inviting you for any last word that you'd want to tell our audience. speak to them?
Mm,
Any advice?
if I'm not a person of one word or two words, I will go again on a tirade, so no point. But yeah, I think knowledge may or may not translate into learning. Just remember that. So make sure it does. Yeah,
Thank you so much, sir.
pleasure.
Great,
Bye.
sir. Thank you all for being here. We'll see you later. Bye bye. Stay tuned.